G'day, and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm executed joined today by Space Tomato, coming to you from where are you come from? LA at the moment, I think.
California,
You can never keep track of you, man. You're all over the place.
some part of the amorphous state, yes.
Yeah. So we were planning to go in the game today and check out the Polaris and the Starlancer, but Citizen's saying no. It's giving me like I think my hanger's bugged or something, and it's lagging like crazy. So we still want to talk about them, but unfortunately, I can't just kind of walk around and show you them. So if that's what you're looking for, you're gonna have to go somewhere else. But I essentially I just wanted to talk to Space about his first impressions and my first impressions of these ships, and essentially the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll probably go to the website and have a look at some of that stuff, but that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Like, I don't know. I'll kick it off. Are you impressed with them? Like, considering we've got essentially the what do you want to start with, the Starlancer or the Polaris? I'll let you pick.
I say we start with the Starlancer because that one's a little less fresh in my memory. I've been seeing a lot of the Polaris the last
Hmm.
few days. I will say this though, it's not surprising that Star Citizen's going to Star Citizen you on a day when you're trying to Star Citizen,
Uh,
and unfortunately,
yep,
that's just how it goes.
that
I wish we
is.
could be looking at these ships in game because I haven't seen the Star. I've only seen the Starlancer one time. It was during a stream, so I wasn't super locked into analyzing it and all this stuff, and I could use a refresher of the interior, but I like it still.
Um, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. The CitizenCon skin that they offered, it's still in the store. If you like this ship, go pick up that skin. It's an absolute no-brainer. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and it's kind of like a metallic blue on top, then like a white line in the middle, and then it's like a matte black on the bottom. And it just, mm, it takes the Misk ships to a different level. So yeah,
I like the skins I've seen so far.
yeah. So I think like let's start with the good stuff, and then we'll move into the bad. Visually, it is a very pretty looking ship. If you like Miss ships, you will like it. If you don't, you don't. I think the usual complaint that I always hear about Miss ships is people hate the slot view. I've never really had a problem with it because the ships are basically industrial. They're not really combat focused. I think the other big plus is all the turrets are remote. So if when you need the visuals, you have it because you just get on it and you've got that full camera view. So I don't see the big deal. I guess I don't know. Have you had a problem with the Ned Kelly view if you're an Australian of the Miss ships or?
Well, my most common misc ship is probably the Prospector.
Mm,
So I mean, that one's swimming in good views.
mm,
Um, but I would say that I understand where people are coming from. I mean, landing specifically, like we're seeing right here,
mm,
is one of the still trickiest things in the game when it comes to flying, just because
yeah, that
we
camera.
don't have like a yeah.
Mm.
I think we need like a 3D holographic.
Did you ever see that when they had that in? They had
Yeah,
a so you used to be able to go over the
but that
pad and you
was
could kind of see the pad below you. Yeah.
yeah, but that was just showing the pad. I think they need
Mm,
something that you can either switch on or off that
yeah.
basically shows you everything within
Using the map
50 meters of
system.
your ship.
You could use
Yeah,
the map system. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
because you don't need that. Because like the thing, sorts of views really affect you when you're maneuvering
Mm,
in between other ships, right? Like
yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
nice to not have to go third person to maneuver next to your friend, or to
Mm,
fly into a cave, or
mm,
to back into an asteroid facility, like all
mm,
these different places where it's just nice to have a nice view from your ship, and that
mm.
I get it with the thin slot view. It's not terrible. It doesn't ruin the ship for me, but that'd be the one thing I'd say that probably is annoying to a captain or pilot.
Mm. I think the one variant of this ship, and when we talked to John and John Crew and Ben Curtis, the thing that they made clear was this was built around the build. And unsurprisingly to me, from my assessment, I know the tac's not out yet. I know technically the build's not out yet. I'm talking just purely on paper stats here. That's the only one that's worth getting. If
So
you go ahead.
in that regard, do you think it was a misstep for them to try and make other variants off the build if that's really the ship they were looking for?
I think the problem comes down to how do you sell something that seems worse than other ships that are already out. So let's look at the Max, for example, right? It's got essentially half the cargo of the Caterpillar, costs roughly the same price. It's like, what, $30 less or whatever it's going to be, but it's half the cargo. And what you get in return is this really big, overblown living quarters. Like the whole top deck is just all living quarters. Um, you've got escape pods, obviously, which you don't have in a Caterpillar, but you have the command module. You've got these massive ass kitchen. Like a lot of the ship just seems really superfluous. And I'll give you the worst example, right? This thing has 3 elevators, all within 20 meters of each other. 2 of them are within 5, and those 2 don't go to the ground. By comparison, of the Polaris, the other ship we're going to talk about today, it has 2 elevators, and they're at opposite ends of the ship. This just has, like, it's just full of fluff. The Max version specifically, double beds in every living quarters. Like it's like
nice.
it's nice, but you can tell it's padding, right? And again, wouldn't you prefer half the living quarters and maybe some more cargo?
I
would
I
take it.
didn't
I was gonna say, if you took out the 2 elevators, you'd also have a room for a bit more cargo.
I didn't look too much at the Max, but what you're saying is valid in my opinion. There is wasted space, and the interesting thing about that, in my opinion, is that you kind of gotta. I like to look at these ships for the vibes that they deliver, right? Not necessarily the exact statistics. Not that it carries this much more SCU than this ship, rather that it carries that SCU in a way that I just find more agreeable with me, right? I would never put myself in a Caterpillar if I had the choice of doing that or this, because this feels better to be in, like, as a spaceship, in my opinion. The Drake aesthetic is one thing, but it's also the very unique construction of the Caterpillar, the overall look of the ship, and just how you feel using it. Now, I think that's kind of, I don't know how far to lean into that, because I think that the devs should also be leaning into that to some extent, and they do clearly with the designs, with the lore, with the different manufacturers. Like, they want you to feel a certain way with certain types of ships, but at the same time, there's also chasing stats that makes ships better organically. You can't have every ship just be all over the place in terms of performance, because that's a nightmare for balance. So I wonder, like, how much they need to focus on making sure they're delivering the quote unquote vibes. I know that's not the most scientific term to describe it.
There is a certain feel or vibes, as you call it, to ships. I get that, and people do lean towards other manufacturers. Like, I think you can pick any manufacturer in the game. There's as many people like it as hate it. It doesn't matter which one it is, right? And I've heard a lot of people complain about MISC in the past. I don't mind MISC, but this ship specifically just really didn't gel with me. Like, if you can see the little fin on the back where the turret is, it's like that fin's been put there just to block the lines of sight of that turret, because if the fin wasn't there, it'd have a full 360-degree view. It's like really weird design decisions like that. But then there's other really good ones, like it's got more windows on it than most ships, so you can, like, when you're sitting at the turret consoles, when you come out of the turret, you're literally looking out a window into space. Really cool things like that.
I like windows.
The for ships of its size, the way the cargo comes down and you can take it out is really useful. But then by the same token, you've got ships like the Hercules where it's just so open, there's no problem putting the cargo in and out either. Yeah, that's the problem with this ship. Is it's essentially how you got like the Connie sized, and then you've got the size above, which is S4. So you're talking S3 versus S4, and the problem with that is basically this is the size up, and that's another part of this. I fully expect at some point, if you think about how you were going to sell it, you'd sell the larger one first, then you'd sell the one that's Connie sized. I'm fully expecting at some point we're going to see another, because it's almost like they took the Freelancer and they went too big. They need to bring it back to in the middle somewhere, and whatever that one will be, I don't know, something Lancer, the show Lancer, I don't know, pick a name, like whatever they call it, whatever. Whatever that's going to be the sweet spot. I think this is too big, and I think the Freelancer's too small. So whatever that Connie-sized MSR Corsair size of Shiv, I think that'll be the real sweet side. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't work on it at the same time they worked on this.
How well do you think they did on translating what is the Freelancer to, like, how does this fit into Musashi Industrial Concern, Flight Concerned, whatever the heck their name is, their brand overall, in your opinion?
It feels a bit older, like that little black thing, like rim thing on the forehead of the ship, and then there's a thing under the chin. Some of the older panels, it actually feels older than the Freelancer in some ways, like it was one of the first ones. If you see what I mean, like it's got these weird
Hmm.
panels and stuff. It's also got cables on the outside of the ship, which some of the others don't have. It weirdly feels older. It doesn't feel newer.
It fits the brand, though, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. Like I've always seen the style of Misk as in that silver riveted look of the like the 1920s to the 1940s aviation aeroplanes where they were
Yeah.
these bubble planes. That's what I thought they were always
Yeah,
trying to
or like
emulate.
the
Yeah,
trailers in the 70s that you
yeah,
would
yeah,
hitch onto the back of the
yeah.
minivans, yeah. Um, the Max is one thing, but I
Mm,
actually this is not really normal for me, but I'm actually more into the TAC,
okay.
the combat associated version.
Well, let's talk about that then, because there were some interesting things that I learned about this. One of the things, you'll remember when the Furies came out, we were like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they were detachable turrets? Apparently, one of the devs talked to Ben Curtis and John Crew, and they suggested the same thing. And they tried to make the two turrets on the TAC do it, but there just wasn't enough space.
Hmm.
Um, my evaluation of the TAC was pretty much spot on. We talked to SA on a live stream as well, so he's one of the military guys. I know you've met him at one point.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just too big. Like this, we're talking about a ship that's essentially the size of a Caterpillar or a 600i, and it's meant to be a drop ship to drop off troops and stuff. It's just way too big. Where you can take a Redeemer that's also a long range dropship or attack craft, and it's way smaller, way more maneuverable, and so because it's smaller, it's just more likely to survive.
That's the one part of this ship that kind of weirds me out. Because I
Mm,
didn't approach this ship from the sense of them explaining what it was and then me finding out, kind of
mm,
blacked out during that part of CitizenCon. Um, I came at this from hearing the features slowly get stacked on,
yeah.
and then me going and looking up what officially it is. Because usually
Mm,
I just block out the combat stuff. I'm really not
mm,
that interested in it. And as I learned about this, it made it sound like a mini Carrack to me.
yeah.
And I think the one thing that goes against that would be those drop pod seats. But even then,
Mm.
don't know if the Carrack has those seats in its armory, but those seem useful still to me.
The drop pod seats
The
are probably kind of useful because you know where the cargo boxes come down for loading. That's where the
Yeah,
seats are, so they just become
yeah,
people that you drop down. It's kind of it's a cool idea.
that is nice. And there's also, it's close to the combat bay and the medic bay.
Mm,
So if you have people that need to get on or off the ship, even to
yeah,
load cargo into this
yeah.
ship or load vehicles,
Mm.
that's where they can be instead of sitting all the way up at the top waiting in the habitation area.
The
And
the other
that's useful still.
one of the things I have a problem with, believe it or not, is the Fury hanger. Right now, the way
Hmm.
the Connie does it does it as like a little dock thing, so it's far less space. This has
Yeah,
to have a whole hanger, and you're giving up almost all your living quarters to get it. Right? And
yeah.
then there are advantages, obviously, so you can repair it easier and stuff like that. But it just takes up so much space of the ship. Where if this had been a dock like that, it would have been easier. I guess
I
the
mean,
advantage is you can move multiple Furies through it if they're already there when you arrive.
and that's a huge advantage also at being a dry dock. Like,
Mm,
having the ability to move throughout that ship and customize the ship and take weapons on and off and do
mm,
all of that without having to go out and vacuum, I
mm,
think will be fairly useful. Because again, I guess it depends on how you're looking at this ship. Some
mm,
people might be looking at this as like an action-oriented
mm,
mission or raid runner or something like that. This
mm.
to me feels like one of the best options, and I'd love to hear you kind of push against this because I want to
Yeah.
know if I'm off course here. It feels like one of the best options in the game for a 4 to 6 people group to just expedition. And not to say that's like an everyday kind of thing. It's not easy to get 4 to 6 friends on, but I look at a ship like say the Zeus feels like a really good option for a 3 person group to go out and just run
Mm.
missions, visit locations, get loot, go on adventures, possibly hurt yourself, but mostly stay safe.
If it was an
This is what I
exploration,
would
if it was an exploration variant, I'd 100% be with you.
But what's
Right?
stopping it? It like let's you could is there a ship that's small enough, maybe that has a better radar that
Well,
fits into the Fury
but
hangar, or do you even need one?
let me put it this way: for the size this is, it's the same size as the Carrack.
Is it as big as the Carrack?
Yes.
Ah,
See if I can look. I'll do it live.
yeah, no. See, I thought it was smaller than the Carrack. That
That,
kind of ruins my whole.
well, that's the thing. So, like, when you actually start to look at its size, that's what kills it, right? It is very cheap for a ship of its size, right? I'm assuming Grimm's actually put them in. So here's the Tac. Is the
But also, an exploration-focused ship doesn't like having the defense this has
there you go.
is pretty nice too.
It's a little smaller, right? So
It's 40 meters smaller. That's like 20% bigger.
it's still in the same size class, believe it or not. You got to remember, this is the largest ship that fits on that pad.
Yeah, but size-wise, that's still quite a bit smaller. Like I think it fits into,
but not metrics. So yes, it is on in human terms, but in Star Citizen metric terms, as in how pads and stuff work, it's not.
But yeah. I want to. So find me another ship that can fit the Tac in terms of its ability to.
Right there, $600 Explorer.
You don't have the defense in that.
Yes, you do. Origin ships are like flying safe rooms. You crazy?
No. Turret-wise, defend yourself.
You've got 3 guns on just the pilot, and then you got 2 more. Man. You've also got.
If you brought a pirate onto this show and you asked them which target would you rather go for, they would pick the 600i every time.
It's got way better components. It's got 2 turrets as well as the 3 pilot-controlled guns. I don't know. I'd have to go have a look at the stats on paper, but I'm telling you, like that.
Does it have?
You specifically mentioned expeditions and exploration. Boom.
Does it have respawn?
Yeah, it will do eventually. They're putting the medical bed on it, aren't they? In the rework.
That's the big thing. That's what like if you took the medical area out of the Tac, I would say it's not suited for that. But the fact that you have good defenses with your turrets, you've got plenty of habitation room, you've got cargo room, you got space for a vehicle, and you've got medical respawn. Depending on how well this thing can do its own scanning, whatever, at 200,000 kilometers to quantum boost places, this feels like a medium-sized expedition Voyager in the same vein that the Carrack is, without the Carrack's bigger scanning abilities.
That is really what you're gaining on the Tac, is that medical bed, right? Everything else, like if you took the hangar. No, I think the hangar, I just don't think that's good because and this is why the Fury does not have a jump drive. So you can't bring extras, right? So if you look at a Polaris as an example, I can take 6 ships with me and I can cycle those ships through and repair them and keep them all maintained. It only allows you to maintain the 1. That's it.
It's still, I can't quantify it. Obviously, we don't know how the game will play, but I feel like it is going to be a bigger deal to have a space where you can work on a ship as opposed to it just being docked. And it's going to be a bigger deal to have a ship in general than not in the future. It's
definitely a step above the Connie, but like if I put the Connie in here, right, and you think about the features you get in the gunship, I typed in Connie and it didn't come up. If I put the Connie, look at the size difference. It is like, it's easily double. Like, and I'm not just talking like, yes, it's 20 meters extra. No, I've just realized I put it behind you on screen. Hang on. I need to rejig these a little bit.
I am the Connie.
Yeah. But you get my point, right? Like it's volume as well. It's not just, you got a single deck essentially in the Connie.
I think it could make better use of its space. Absolutely. But what it has included in itself in a vacuum is pretty dang good. And even in not in a vacuum, if the 600i is the best matching ship you can come up with, then there's a space for it, because this is a brand that doesn't compete with the Origin. They're looking at your.
There is a space for it, right? And the only space I see for it is essentially a boarding craft that can keep respawning people, right? But by the same token, can't you kind of do that with a Redeemer and another medical ship? And it's
I would never want to use this for boarding.
Sorry, when I should say drop ship, right? So you land, because that's the other thing. A lot of the 2 main turrets are all downwards facing. It's like the same problem with the A2. They only shoot in one direction. So all you need is a ship from above, and this thing is cooked. And the other thing is
Yeah,
when you land, you've only got the 2 turrets on top to cover you. If those 2 turrets on the front were also like say on the side, so they could shoot up, you know, like just again.
I don't know about this thing for a drop ship. That's a weird one for me.
But
So,
that's
like,
what
you
it
won't find
is.
me arguing that.
It's
Yeah,
got a seat that's literally designed. Well, how it's designed to land on the ground. The seats come down and you walk off. Like
Dude, I
that's
just learned that today.
Yeah, I know.
Like I said, I learned
Yeah.
the features of this ship
Yeah.
and then looked into it. I didn't learn about what this ship's supposed
Yeah.
to be. So I'm a big advocate of using ships for something they're not meant for. If they continue to give us that ability, but
I'm sure it
think about
has
this ship.
a place in the game, but I'm going to chuck the Redeemer in there as well because I would rather take the Redeemer. So yes, you don't have the medical bed in a Redeemer, but 2 Redeemers with the redundancy, the speed, and the maneuverability. I will take those 2 Redeemers over. And I know people say, oh, it's not the same crew count, but again, you could technically have 3 people in the Redeemer in each Redeemer, and it's very close then to what the TAC would have.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, so
I'm not going to argue about the dropship angle.
it's just in a weird spot, right? And this one's even worse. The Max is the worst by a country mile. This one, I start to go, yes, I can start to see there will be a place for it eventually. I just think it's a little bit too big. It obviously can travel pretty far. Probably it can travel even farther than the Redeemer, even though the Redeemer's long range in its default configuration. I still think the whole thing is the build, though. I think the build is the only variant you're going to want. Because of the building facilities, the way the Galaxy is, we now know that you've got bespoke ships, variant ships, and then modular ships. So the build will be able to build better than the Galaxy will anyway, just based on how things work. I know we don't have the build, but when we eventually have it, I think that's going to be the variant to have. And I just find it weird that they didn't sell a CCU for it already.
Well, like you were saying, I think before the show, like the build is really where the reason for the Starlancer series.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because on the stage they said it was a series, and these are the first 3, as into
I know, wasn't it a bit
emphasize that there's going to be more of them?
Well, you'd hope there's an exploration variant, like a DUR, or a Starlancer DUR. Like you said,
do you? I mean, after this talk, do you really think they should continue to use this model? It sounds like it got some problems, in your opinion, fundamentally.
No. It's not the model. I want to make that clear. It's the gameplay functionality, right? It doesn't have enough cargo. How is that a Max when it doesn't carry at least as much as the Caterpillar? It's not maximized cargo. It's maximized living quarters. That's not what the Max is.
It's more of a general variant. They should just call it the Starlancer.
It should just be called the Starlancer because the Max would be like the Freelancer Max. And so I think that's a fucking lie. I'm sorry, but it's a fucking lie. It's not a Max. It's a minimum.
How much more cargo does it carry? I guess the only reason they called it that, so that's interesting. It's almost like a different philosophy than how they used to do their variants, where the Freelancer would come in and they'd give you the base Freelancer version, then they'd give you a military Freelancer version, and they'd give you a cargo Freelancer version. Whereas with this, they're just giving you the military and cargo Freelancer versions. Yeah. And they did that with the Zeus too, kind of. Like, instead of giving us a base Zeus, they gave us a Zeus and said, this one's meant for exploration. And then they went and made the other ones. They're not really doing the general variant of a ship and then adding the other ones on. They're doing just multiple variants. And I wonder what the reasoning is behind that.
I'm just trying to pull up the Max as well. Just give me a moment. So the SCU on the Max is 224. On the Caterpillar, it's 576. So it's more than double.
Caterpillar's gonna cat, dude.
And I don't know, like, I know you get that long rangeness, right? But the other thing is you're then paying extra fuel to travel that extra range. So you'd have to be carrying really niche cargo and carrying it a really long way to make it profitable. Because otherwise, if you're going a small distance, or the same distance as the Caterpillar, for example, you're carrying less cargo, so less profit. So the only trips you're going to be doing in that Max is that what it is? Maximum distance? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not like a normal Max. It's not the same thing. Like, and by using the same moniker, it's misleading as hell because it should be maximum cargo, not whatever they've gone with.
Yeah.
I would rip the living quarters out of that and just turn it all into cargo. Maybe they looked at that, and you know the 2 lifts that they have? Maybe instead of 2 lifts, they should have just had one that was in the center that just went up and down, and it has like a cargo grid on it. So you could literally take the cargo up and fill the whole living quarters area, and instead of the kitchen, rip the kitchen out and just put like 4 bunk beds and have like a micro kitchen. I just don't like the way they've done it.
Your ship basically has a freight elevator.
Yeah,
and it just pulls up from the collection and pushes it down.
Yep.
Yeah, it would be cool. Yeah.
You know, and then you could put more cargo up there, or you could, you know, I don't know. They could have worked out some way of doing it that's better than what it is. I just don't think they wanted cargo upstairs. And again, the fact that it's got double beds and 2 elevators just is like, why? The 2 elevators don't do anything when the ship's only like, what is it, 80 meters long. You don't need 2 elevators. And it's also got a ladder in it as well. You just don't need 3 elevators in a ship that small. It's just full of fluff, and I think that's also why the price is so cheap, because they know it was never going to sell against the Caterpillar. But I'm expecting that you know, when the build comes out, it's going to be almost as expensive as the Galaxy. So it's going to be like $100 more than the Max. So yeah.
The build will be interesting to see just for the gameplay.
Yes, absolutely. So there is plenty that competes with this thing. I do hope. What variant would you like to see then? Like, I know I said the DER. What would you like to see? A Starlancer what?
I think I've seen it. I think this looks like a great general purpose ship, and like you said, there are some things that they could clean up for sure.
So what I mean is they were implying that there were other variants coming. What do you kind of think or hope one of those would be? That's what I meant. Sorry if I wasn't clear. You don't know?
I don't know. No,
Well, the Tac is kind of like the Misery, is it not? Right. So you got the Freelancer Miss, you've got the Freelancer DER, and you got the Freelancer Max.
Yeah.
Right? So the only one left is like a base variant, which is what I really think this Max is. And I think they should make another Max, which is just all cargo, right? And then I think the last variant would have to be the DER. So essentially change this back to Starlancer, make an actual Max, and make a DER, or DER and a Max. Yeah.
It'd be cool to maybe see a refining variant of this ship to go alongside the Odyssey, but they have the Expanse, so I don't know. But it would be interesting. We still don't know really how in-depth refining gameplay is going to be.
They've also got the Galaxy. I'll add that in here too, because that's about the same size. So I don't think you'll see that, unfortunately. Warning, no. Oh shit, I can't. I've run out of space. All right, we're just gonna shove it in there somewhere. But yeah, you can see they're all roughly in the same size class. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think you'll see a refinery, unfortunately.
No, probably not. But Misk and RSI can compete. Come on, guys.
Yeah,
So the Polaris.
I think it might be have to be something that we haven't seen before. If they've hinted at other variants, there are still a lot of agriculture ships to come. There's the gas collection stuff, like, you know, you got the Starfarer, how it can collect gas, and there's still the extraction ships, which is what you know how the Pioneer can land and drill underground. So the underground drillers are now called extraction. So it could be one of those, like an extraction. Gas collector, Starfarer is about the same size, so it probably won't be it. But agriculture or gas might be the other 2 variants. Just putting it out there. All right, the Polaris. I don't really have a really good shot of this one, unfortunately, because of... Yeah, okay, we got that. That'll do. I want more gameplay. I had a really good gameplay session with Moist the other day, Moist Noodle, and I want more. But we did the safe Stanton in a Polaris, and it was just like one of the most visceral experiences I've had so far. We go in with the Idris, we shoot the utter crap out of it. We disable one of the engines, it becomes dead in the water. I'm on the big turret at the front. I blow the doors off. We all pile out of the Polaris. We board this thing. Everyone else goes right. I stupidly go left. We kill almost everyone. And the last 2 guys on the left side, they got me. And so I'm hobbling out as we're trying to get out of this thing as it's exploding. And it's just like so tense because I'm going slower than we should be. And then we just all kind of like fly into space. we get back in the ship, and my arm doesn't work, so I can't use the turret. So I've got to off myself and respawn. And then we respawn, and another Polaris, and a player Polaris turns up, and we have a big fight with them, and the ships coming and going out of the hangars. Like, it was just all hands on board, and it was the first kind of real. This is the taste of what multi-crew can be, and we don't have engineering, we don't have repair. There's so many more gameplays to come, and where it is now is like clearly the biggest step up we've ever had. This even if you don't like this ship, it is a taste of what is to come.
Yeah, it is. This is a big change for the game. I thought engineering was going to be the big change for the game, but just the literal action of getting more than 5 people on a combat focused ship, especially because we have large ships that do other things, like the A90 Jumpseeker Massive, but its main gameplay isn't in the game, so you can't really test what it would be like. We also have the Starfarer, which is pretty big, not as big, but it's pretty big. Reclaimer's in there, and you can kind of test that with salvage, and I think that's one of those moments where people got to do salvage as a whole thing with 5 people on the Reclaimer, and you'll see that same sort of reaction of like, holy crap, this is headed in such a great direction. Now we're seeing it on the combat side. With this, I've had similar experiences to what you say. It feels like you're in a movie. Like, there are multiple times when you're playing in combat situations around capital ships, and it feels like you're in a movie. It feels like you're in a highly scripted cinematic scene in some 2000s space adventure FPS game. It feels like you're playing something that has been prepared to look good.
Like you're a cog in the machine. You're just going along with it. Like, you're shooting like crazy, but you just like, you're part of the ship, part of the crew, I think is the way I'd put it.
And it's all happening in real time. And it's pretty shitty, honestly, right now, because the FPS is terrible, the performance is terrible. But like you said, if you extrapolate, if the game does get stable, if it does get stable, and we get the other things that are coming with capital ship gameplay, from escape pods to more medical gameplay to losing gravity on the ships to hacking to engineering, all these things, this is going to be one of the coolest experiences in gaming for people like me or yourself there is out there. It's going to be so cool.
There's tech on the ship too, like the render, the texture stuff. Like, you can walk in and see yourself on the mirror now. You can, if you put someone in the brig, you can see it on the kind of like, I don't know, do they call it a petty officer or the jailer's screen? I don't know what to call that. You can see them there. There are cameras on the ship, so when you fire the torpedoes, there's a remote camera on the front of the ship, so you can see the torpedoes go out. I can't even imagine what it's going to like be when you actually get refueling and repairing on that hangar, and you're able to, you'll start cycling multiple ships through that. Like, at the moment, you probably have 1 or 2 ships in the hangar, and they're just because they fit. But when that actual gameplay comes in, and you're like under pressure hand repairing a ship so it can go back out, and you're extending the life of all those ships so they don't have to go back to port and repair, like, oh my god, like it's gonna triple the amount of things that the ship can do. The medical area, like, it's got 4 med beds on it, all level 2. Like, it's even got like a little doctor's, nurses, assistants chair thing. Like you've just walked up to the doctors and go, oh, I'm here for my appointment. Like, it's bizarre how visceral it all feels. And then you go down to the engine room, and it looks like it's something ripped out of sci-fi. It's all sitting in a swimming pool, like it's been ripped out of the Matrix or something. Like, it's just.
I wonder if supposed to be like is that meant to be something that we can actually repair?
I think it will be eventually, but I don't think you actually go down there. Like, if you notice, it's consoles around the top.
I as much as I love the way that the large ships components work, and you can tell because each of the components in the large ships, from the 890 to the Hammerhead to the whole series to the Polaris, they all have custom components that clearly don't follow the same construction constraints as the ones that we pull out and repair. So I'm wondering how much repair gameplay will still be involved in these very custom assets.
They're repair in place, and also you pull out the subcomponents. Much like how, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's fuses all around the ship as well.
Yeah. So
Oh
when
yeah.
you repair in place, is it just going to be turning the outer shell of that component into hot nacho cheese and then watching it reseal itself like the rest of the gameplay is right now, or is it going to continue to march forward with
I can't tell
other
you that
types?
right now because we
Yeah,
haven't been elaborated on. But
of course.
also, it's got those subcomponents, so you can take the subcomponents out and repair them. So
That's what
you
that's
can't take out the size 3 component, but you could take the subcomponent out and go take it to a bench or repair it in. You saw it in CitizenCon last year with Thorben. Like they pulled it out and they all kind of repaired it on the ground and then they put it back in.
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
subcomponents should be a
yeah.
big thing, and I wonder how far they're going to go with that.
Mm. It's it,
But
I want to talk about the look of the ship for a little bit because that's where we started on the Starlancer, but we kind of glossed over that on this because we went down the excitement train. I
mhm.
also think it shows you the style of what the Galaxy will be too, because they have similar shape language. But if you get up close on this thing and you just look at the level of detail, I can now see why they went back and did the Javelin and Idris because it is another level, man. Like it is insane. Like I don't think I've ever seen something so big be so detailed. And I know you can see this shot where it kind of flies through as it comes through the jump point up here, or the warp rather. But you need to get in game at some point and just go up close to this thing. It is. You can see why it took 18 months or however long it took because it's just covered in love. I don't know what else to call it. Like just
I haven't even seen it really up close from
yeah.
the outside, but I can tell when I'm looking at it from far away that it is whereas it used to be this very, even in the concept images, this very flat Dorito.
Mhm.
You can now tell there's a ton of
Yeah.
geometry on there, whether that is fake geometry or real.
Mhm.
It adds a ton of noise, I guess, to
Yeah.
the design that makes
Yeah.
it look a lot more like a real life thing than just a shape as a spaceship flying around.
Well, you know how when you tend to have something bigger, it's really just a scaled up version of something that's smaller? It's not like that. It is like truly is like multiple ships put together worth of quality. You go through the corridors, even the outside, like even little things like when you put up the landing gear and it deploys these wings and it deploys the engines, it's just got shape language. Like you can tell someone has sat there for hours and worked out the shape that they wanted those wings to take. The way the hangar bay doors open and close. If you've ever animated anything, you're just sitting there going, "That poor sod of a bitch," because it's like 7 or 8 pieces that are all like perfectly sliding and molding together, and you're just like, "Poor sod of a bitch who
It's
animated this."
yeah, you can tell the work went into it, and
Mhm.
especially in the interior too. It has this feeling of being military, of being very stoic and
Mhm.
meant for a purpose,
Yep.
but also avoiding feeling drab and under detailed. It doesn't feel like it's military just because it's
Yeah.
boring and cold. It feels like it's military because you can tell the company who made it
Yep.
wanted to make sure it got the job done, but wasn't doing
Mhm.
much extra. Like when you're walking around the hallways, you can very very effectively feel the difference between this and say whatever the 600i rework might be, or
Mhm.
even something like a higher end Crusader ship. It feels very purpose built,
It-
especially compared to something like the Starlancer Tac
yeah.
or another ship that is specifically combat made but not military made. You can tell this is made for military, not just for
Yeah.
combat.
The Starlancer's still got those details too, but like I look back at older ships like say the Reclaimer, and you clearly go, "Oh man, I want that done to this. I want to be able to go." Like you know, how the Reclaimer's got a lot of flat areas, and it doesn't have as much. It just doesn't have the greebling that this has. Is how I'd
Yeah,
put it. And it kind of shows that they probably will go back and redo a lot of those ships eventually. Like I don't know how long that's going to
yeah,
be.
it's gonna be a
Um,
long time.
but yeah, you know,
All that.
it
Go
is
ahead.
the new standard for capital ships. Let's put it that way. So things like that are already out, like the 890 jump, the I'm hopefully they're already doing that to the Idris and Javelin because that has been mentioned. But yeah, the Reclaimer and 890 jump at some point are going to need a pass somewhat similar to this. And I'm just talking externally. I'm not really talking internally as much in the cases of those, but just the big open spaces. There just isn't any open space on this. It's the other thing is the number of lights. Have you noticed all the lights on it? Like I want to be able to turn
Not
them
really, no.
off, This thing, when you land outside at night, go do that if you get a chance. Just the default lighting is so bright, and then you turn on, like, the lights are literally are just high beams. There's no lights that kind of come around the ship; they're already on.
I see.
It needs a button to be able to kind of go a bit more stealthy and turn its lights off. Yeah, it doesn't show up in that video there behind it, but you go in game, there are lights all over this thing. So yeah.
Well, you know, the military, they like their lights. I will say at the end of all this, a lot of praise, a lot of appreciation for what we got with this, but I just don't like the design. Like,
And that's
personally,
the thing.
from a subjective point of view,
It's a big chip.
there are many capital ships that look better to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I kind of more see it as in, well, I objectively can take myself out of it, but I kind of just see, like, if this is what's going forward, if every other capital ship can hit that level, like, for example, I don't know if you like Draconaut, but imagine this was a Kraken. Holy shit. Imagine this was the
crazy.
Idris or the Javelin or the Orion or the Pioneer. Oh, the Pioneer next year. Holy shit. Like, wow. Like, you see where I'm going with this, right? It just...
Yeah, no, they're constantly getting better at making the ships, and that is a good thing. That's kind of the whole, hey, be happy they haven't made your ship yet, because it's going to look really dang good when it comes in. But I still find myself wondering, where do they draw the line? Like, at what point do they say this is the quality that each ship has to hit for 1.0, and from here on we're updating all ships? Because imagine they're releasing ships, and all the way up until 2028 or whenever the heck 1.0 comes out, they're releasing better and better and better ships. That either gives you the conclusion that, oh my gosh, they're going to go so far past the release to bring these ships up to date, or, oh my gosh, because I have older ships, they're just simply not going to be up to date with these newer ones. Like, when do they cut off the quality?
Well, that's the other thing. How far back do they have to go to do things? Like, you know, they went back to the Retaliator, and we don't know how many people worked on it. We don't, we don't know how long they actually put work. Was it 3 weeks? Was it 18 months? Was it one person? Was it 10? We just don't know. And that's the other thing. Like not all ships are going to need like a full rework, like say the 600i. They're just going to need an update. Like I said, like there are bigger ships like the 890 Jump where they're going to need an external rework or parts added to the outside. So it's probably not even a full rework. It could just be more texture detailing. It could be, as I said, little greebles added. So I think it's more of a case by case basis of ship per ship.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, like, how do you measure that? I just don't know how you're going to measure that. And they're getting more and more people joining the ship team. So we did those shirts for them, right? For CitizenCon. It was 52 shirts. So that means in 12 months, they'd gone from 28 to 52.
Wow.
That explains the levels of ships, right? All the onboarding
were you able
tasks.
To confirm that with John?
Well, we had to get 52 shirts. So clearly that was how many people they had that were on the ship team.
Okay. Wow, that is fast. So I made a video like maybe 2 months ago that had them at around low 30s.
Yeah, they were 28 last year. They grew last year.
They grew fast.
Yeah, so they got it's only another 14 people, but
I mean, that's almost that's, I don't know, 30% increase.
Wait, have I math wrong? I think I might have math wrong there. Hang on. It's 24.
You said
people.
They went to 40. How many people? 40.
24 people. Sorry, not 14. 24 in a year.
They went up to 48. You said
52.
52 from 28. Yeah, 24 people. So almost a 50% increase over 1 year.
Yeah.
And if you look at the way that they were growing over the last 7 years, it was not nearly that fast.
Yeah.
That's a hefty increase in hiring to the ship team specifically.
How many people were, coming from Montreal as well? Because they've got ship teams over there. So that's probably where a lot of them came from, was Montreal. So
you don't think they would have been including that already? Ship teams from other locations?
Yes, but I think like the reason why they're able to grow by 28 would have been both Manchester and Montreal ship teams growing. So that's why they're able to do 24. Like you essentially break the difference. That's 12 people at each location over 12 months. That's quite obtainable, in 12 months. But that's why we had so many onboarding tasks this year, like things like the Firebird, the Peregrine, Even ships that are coming like the Misfortune and stuff like that, they're all onboarding tasks.
Be interesting to know what they're trying to gear up for, kind of schedule they're trying to hit.
Yeah. You know, you got they got the Perseus coming in. All those other ships like the Ironclad, the Pioneer, they're going to need so many people to pull that off. I know they're not all coming in the next 12 months, but if they're going into production, like how many people are they putting? Like that we know from the Polaris, they had 8 people on it for the whole time.
That's a lot, yeah, and that's just a lot of work over time.
So do you take 8 people and put them on single ships, or do you put multiple? Again, you do the math. If you've got 52 people, what did we say? Perseus, Pioneer, Ironclad, there's 3, and I'm not saying there's 8 on each one, but like let's just say there was, you're already at, do you know what I mean? You're already at 24. So there's all your new people going. You're back to the original 28. Plus they had 8 of those on the Polaris. It's kind of crazy time. Oh, you know, you can see why they got things like the build out though, or I should say the Starlancer out as well. So, and we again, that was the other thing we learned, that ships have an 18-month turnaround from concept to release is 18 months.
Sometimes a year.
Yeah. So they would already know the ships that are coming out at CitizenCon next year.
I think that needs to be decreased a lot. Like,
how do you
should be having 4 to 6 month turnarounds.
I think there's a lot more that goes into these ships than most people realize.
Sure, I just think that they should probably not introduce them as early in that case.
I don't think they do. Again, they know about it, right? So the example that John gave me was the...
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I don't mean they should work on them for 4 to 6 months. I think we should be told about them no more than 4 to 6 months before they come to the game. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to say they need to do their work.
In some cases, we don't even get told until they go on sale. I think that's what they're moving. I think that's what they're moving towards. They're trying to do a lot less concepts. I think the only ones we're gonna let's look at this year's AIE that's literally around the corner in 9 days, 23 hours, and less than 25 minutes. We're only going to really get one concept this year, and it'll probably be some big ship, right? That they need to sell to fund its kind of development. But most of the ships are going to get, they're already been finished. They're moving
There's like 5 or 6 ships that we're about to get at CitizenCon.
CitizenCon's gone, but you mean AIE?
I mean, AIE, yeah.
I don't think we're getting as many as you think, because you can't clog the sale with new ships because they don't sell. Right?
That's true, and that's why I was wondering, how are they going to do so many?
If you look at the last few years, they've only ever sold 3. And generally you get them in different size categories. So what you do is you get something like a starter, something in the mid-range, and then you get a concept of something larger.
Well, I don't think they're necessarily selling all of the ones we're getting. Like, I'm also counting the Hornet, the Mark IIs, in that list. The Polaris is obviously already there. Starlancer is already there, so that's already 4.
I believe the Ghost and the Ghost and the Tracker will probably be kicked back to Invictus military.
Really? You think it's already? Isn't it already confirmed on the release view?
Let's go have a look. I could be completely wrong, and I'm happy to be completely wrong in that case if I am. Robert Space Industries, and was it Roadmap?
Yeah.
Want to release view? Is it ships and vehicles?
Oh, looks like they're not. Yeah, they're committed.
Mark II. Yeah. 324.
So that's already 4 ships that we're getting for in IAE.
Okay, they are coming. That's interesting.
And
It's
then
such a weird thing. They're meant to already be in the game now.
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay. Interesting. Why
I mean, it doesn't say released, right? Just committed.
Why the hell were they on the image for ships going into production for next year then?
In the next year.
Yeah, but they're not in production. They're finished.
Well, I mean,
or they're already in production.
It was a way to pad the list. I don't know, man. I thought it was. It's like how they did the Reclaimer or the Retaliator.
Yeah. So I did a video yesterday with Grim that came out, and there was only 2 ships in that were really of interest that were hard to work out. And I basically, you know, that everyone thinks is Drake with the big wing things.
Yeah.
It's not Drake. It's
What is it?
most likely Mirai. You got to think of the Reliant, and
What?
yeah, and the Reliant originally was by Misk, and it is still by Misk. But when they brought out Mirai, they were going to move it over, and there is in the every photo there is like people standing there that are like of the role of what that ship is, and there's a person there with a gun. So if it's combat based and it's by Misk, it's actually by Mirai. And
We'll
again,
see.
with the two wings, you can't fake. You know how the Corsair had two small wings and then one big one, but it was the same weight. It's like an
Mhm,
artificial asymmetry. You can't do that.
mhm.
It's got one really big one and one little one. So the only way that can fly is vertically, which means the wings have to rotate. The only ship in the game that has rotatable wings is the Reliant.
Hmm.
So
We'll see.
yeah, we'll see. And then the other one, I think, is a Consolidated Atlant ship, which I think they're
What
probably building along with the Pioneer.
other
Uh,
uh
Give me a second. I'll bring it up for you. Uh, Totally
I
off
like
topic
whatever the
here.
hulking TIE fighter, TIE
Yeah,
interceptor looking one was.
yeah, we've totally gone off the rails. It's this one here,
Oh, okay.
Consolidated Outline, and the way you can kind of tell is, see, it's got a little triangle in there.
Mhm.
That's very similar to the struts on the Pioneer when they were flying through the Pioneer on the CitizenCon stuff. And also, you can't see it, but just behind your head, there's a leg on the back of it that looks like the
Mhm.
leg off the Mustang.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of where your hexagons are, just above, just behind those. You can't kind of see it though,
Yeah.
but that
Okay.
you can look at it later if you want to look at it, or go watch the video.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna watch the
That I
video.
did. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, total off topic. Right. I think that's kind of everything, Dan. Unless there's anything else you kind of want to go over for the ships. I think it's a really great start. I do like the look of the ships. They're all great. My only problem with the Tac is, sorry, the Starlancer is just functionality. Hopefully, the other variants bear more fruit. For me, it's the build. Polaris is a great kind of start. I am more excited though for the utilitarian ships myself, but obviously we need the gameplay to go with those. Your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Starlancer is, I think a good competitor, at least in the TAC. I think that the Max should probably just be the Starlancer itself as a
Agreed.
base version. I don't know
Mm,
why they've moved away from having a base version of a ship, but maybe they want to make sure every ship is specialized now, rather than having general ships and then specialized ones.
yep.
But the Max feels like the base Starlancer.
Agreed.
I'm Neither of these ships really hit it for me in terms of design, but both I could see how they can fit into the game.
Mm,
Although I do hear the efficiency of the use on the Starlancer. The Polaris, though, is a big deal, in
yep.
my opinion. It is, we don't even have
Yep.
engineering, and it
Yep.
is really eye-opening just how much this game can change.
Yep.
Like we're so used to single seat dogfighting,
Mm,
and that being generally all that combat is focused around. And I think that's a part of why master modes is such a hot topic. But
mm,
now that we're starting to see the way that capital ships work, both when they're in operation and you're using them versus when they're derelict or
yeah.
disabled and you're boarding them, there is so much more depth going into this game in terms of
Mm,
combat than just the dogfighting. And there's going to be a lot of growing pains, I
yeah.
think, a lot of confusion, a lot of
Yeah.
slow progress in
Yeah.
getting this game to work how it's supposed to with things like the Polaris in. But I'm glad that we're finally seeing it, because it's
Yeah.
it's gonna change things up. I
Yeah.
just hope that we can start to see missions that take advantage of it.
Yeah.
We need PvE content to drive small groups of people hopping into Star Citizen for a couple hours and running a couple missions with a ship of this size.
Yeah, it's like you said earlier. If you don't like the ship, and you kind of said you didn't like it, it's just being able to see what it brings for the future. I
Yeah.
think, in short, yeah. All right. Where can people find you on the interweb space?
Lots of places. YouTube's the easiest. I
Okay.
make YouTube videos. Some of you might know. Space Tomato is the way to find it. Just search Space Tomato. But we have 4 different channels at this point.
They're
The
growing
freaking
and
daunting
multiplying.
gauntlet, dude. Oh, yeah, we got the main channel, which does your kind of shorter long form 10 to 15-minute videos about development. Second channel, Space Tomato 2, which is doing podcasts like this and long talks that look into the details of the game. Also started to release some news videos on there. We'll see how that goes. We got a gameplay channel, Space Tomato Plays, pretty self-explanatory. And the
Mm,
Tomatoes, where me and my wife are doing some stuff a little more personal, if you want to check that out. But all of them can be found from my YouTube channel or spacetomatogaming.com or whatever. We also have a Twitch channel where we stream,
Mm.
and an org where we play the game.
I do
So
like
many
the
things.
pizza streams you and Honey have been doing.
Yeah. The cooking streams, those go up on the Tomatoes channel, and they're good fun. We cook a lot. We live in Turkey for part of the year, and we cook a lot of stuff that we can't cook in America because of ingredients and stuff. So people
There's
enjoy it.
some kind of joke there with turkey and Thanksgiving. I just can't quite nail it right now, but it'll come
I'm
to me
sure you'll
later.
get it, dude.
Yeah, it'll come
Yeah,
to me later.
probably very original.
All right, then. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thank you to everyone that went the extra mile on Patreon at the end of the video. All right, with that, then, this has been Mr. Space Tomato. I've been Execute. Catch you next time, citizens. See ya.